We've sent over 1 million cold emails this year, and actually just for us, we send about 150 emails every single day.
And now, it's time once again for the show that gives glorious voice to 25 million business owners across the fruited plain. Radio Free Enterprise with Frank Felker.
Hello, hello, hello. Yes, indeed, I am Frank Felker. Welcome back to Radio Free Enterprise. My friend, I started doing email marketing back in the 1990s, back before there was even such a thing as HTML email, where you could include photographs and graphics and that type of thing. And I thought it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I had people who were receiving my email newsletter. I sent it out through something called listserv.com. And there were people in South Africa and Asia and Europe who were receiving my emails every week, and I just thought this was the greatest thing ever. But then, before you knew it, along came an idea that came to be called spam. And I'm not talking about the kind you make a sandwich out of or what Monty Python sang many a song about, but rather emails that were sent without permission. And before you knew it, you could buy 10 million email addresses on a CD for $50 and just start spamming the heck out of people. And in fact, it did work. A small percentage of people would actually buy, but the vast majority of people got very angry about it. And it got to the point where I don't think I've ever seen this, almost never seen anything else rise to the level of a national law being enacted, like the CAN-SPAM Act that laid down the law and said you can't do this, but you can do that. And in fact, the spam regulations are different in Canada than they are in the United States. And in any event, spam for the most part has gone the way of the dodo bird. But every so often, we will still receive an unsolicited email from someone, and generally they're trying to get us to do business with them. And I received such an email from a man named Alex Berman the other day. And Alex contacted me and said that he wanted to know if I had room for another podcast interview, I believe was what the subject line was. And as it turns out, Alex's desire was to be interviewed on Radio Free Enterprise. And in fact, he is our guest today. And so let me welcome Alex Berman to Radio Free Enterprise.
Thanks for having me on, Frank. It's a great opportunity.
Well, let me just try to wrap up the story here, and then we'll get into the meat of it, Alex. So you did send me this solicitation, and I was intrigued by it. I might go so far as to say I was a bit charmed by it. And as somebody who's been involved in marketing for a long, long time, I understand how difficult it can be to break the ice with an absolute stranger and get them to actually commit to a call to action that you're offering to them. But you were able to get me to do that, and I saw what you were doing, but I went along with it anyway because I just thought it was great. So let me ask you, we're all familiar with spam. We know what that's all about. What you sent me was not anything close to spam. You call it cold emailing. How would you define cold emailing, and how is it different from spam?
Sure. So I'd say the difference between cold emailing and spam is two factors. The first is I know that you interview people similar to me. So I did some research ahead of time, and I looked and I saw that you had some emails on like how to get on podcasts, and you had some other, you had a background in email marketing. So I knew that your podcast was going to be a good fit. So the first tool is it's not cold if you're able, or it's not spam if you're able to do enough research to make sure you're reaching out to the right people. And then the second thing is it's not spam if it's customized per person. So as you mentioned, the email I sent you, I called out the way that you're super charismatic when you talk to your listeners. And I also called out your episode that you did on podcast appearances. So it was custom for you, along with some pitches with some topics that we could talk about.
So this was basically digital kissing up to me.
Yeah. And like you said, you did see what I was doing, but it didn't matter.
Isn't that funny? I think that's great. Yes, it was just something that worked no matter what. And while we're talking here, I'm going to pull up that email at some point if I can find it, and see if I can choose a couple of the particular phrases that you used that worked in particular. So you were with a company that's called Inspire Beats. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you guys use cold emailing as a tactic to generate leads for clients. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've sent over 1 million cold emails this year, and actually just for us, we send about 150 emails every single day, just to pitch our own service to clients.
Now, and so let's just start with your example then. 150 a day. Do you actually do a similar level of research on each one of those recipients that you did with me?
Yeah, so that's actually our big differentiator. A lot of cold emailing shops or outbound marketing agencies will write what they call a really good template, and they'll segment your users and they'll send out a really good template to all of these people. We found, though, we tried doing the template because that's actually a way easier way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
Template emails got about a 1% conversion rate. The type of email I sent you and the type of email that we send for our clients and ourselves, meeting book rate is about 2 to 3%, and response rate is 6 to 7, usually.
Now, okay. So 6 to 7% respond, and then of them, about a third will actually then speak to you on the phone or take whatever the next step in the sales funnel is.
Right. It's about half. But yeah, that is 2 to 3 times more effective than doing the templated emails. That's why we've moved towards that model.
That's an extremely valuable service, and we'll get to at a later point in the interview how you guys charge for what you do. But I've used the example many times of a relationship between a prospect and your company being very much like dating. Somebody has to break the ice and intrigue the other party sufficiently to get them to engage in a two-way conversation. And all of us are fearful that we'll walk up and try to break the ice and get just shut down, slapped down, and embarrassed. And it's the kind of thing that just the fear of that type of outcome is enough to keep people from doing it. So what I'm driving at here is it's clear that you guys have figured out the right words or the right angles to use to actually break the ice and break through to the consciousness of the person you're reaching out to. Can you give us any sort of strategic tips on how you do that?
Sure. So it's not about, I know you said using the right words, and you did relate it to dating. It's not like pickup, though, where I don't think you can use scripts and be successful. What I do and what we do a lot of the time.
Dating either, although I guess it does.
That's what I was. That's what I was saying. But that's like the pickup mindset is like use scripts.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, I don't think that works in sales either. So what I use is frameworks, and that's what we do as a company as well. So in the subject line, I like to call out something specific about what's going on with them, and then their name. So for the email I sent to you, it was room for another interview, Frank. Called out your name right there in the subject line. Mm-hmm. If you were selling, to startups, we just sent out an email about a Ruby on Rails list, and it was we built this tool that instantly finds Ruby projects. Is that something you'd be interested in, Mike? Was the subject line.
That's great.
Yeah, it clocked in at about 81 characters, which is one character too long for a subject line, but it still had an incredibly high open rate and meeting book rate. So subject line that's customized, that fits their criteria. Then you jump in, with an intro, so like, hey, Frank. Then personal line about something about their business. So came across your podcast and loved the charismatic way you interact with listeners was the one I sent you. Came across your agency, looked through your portfolio and loved the work you did on the Tyson website redesign.
Awesome.
That would be a great one for that. So something that you really like about their business in that first line. Then you go into your pitch. I try to keep it around 1 to 2 sentences. So for the one I sent you, it was, I'm head of growth for a company called Inspire Beats. We do fully managed sales and lead gen for startups and agencies. Similar to Lead Genius, naturally, we're trying to get the word out. So quick 1 sentence, tell them what you want to do. Then for what I sent you, I sent bullet points on potential topics, but you don't have to do that if you're just selling stuff. So you could just, after your pitch, you go into what you do if it's not, in that first sentence. So for the Ruby on Rails list, it was like, we built a tool that finds 60 to 70 Ruby on Rails projects from scouring over 100 plus paid Meetup, Facebook, and other private groups.
Nice.
Where we'll just send you all the project details and your business development team can reach out and book a meeting. And then, so that was the pitch for that. Then you do a call to action. So is that something you'd be interested in, Mike? If so, I'm here if you want to book a call, or here's a link with more info. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, P.S. So the last thing is a PS line that pulls something else personal. Usually I go to their social media profile for that. So for you, since you're a podcaster, I talked about your past episodes. So awesome episode about the power of podcast appearances. A lot of times, though, they'll call out on their Twitter profile that they're like into climbing up cliffs, or they're into sports. I don't reference sports personally because I'm not a fan of it, but or they're into dogs, or they're into craft beer. So like, P.S. Saw on Twitter you loved craft beer. Any good bars in Boston that you like?
Yeah, might be one or two.
Yeah.
That's great. By the way, I will post, with your permission, Alex, I will post the exact text that you emailed to me that resulted in this interview, so that everybody can see exactly how you phrased it, and not the least of which, because as you referenced the episode I did about the power of podcast appearances, a big challenge for people trying to get interviewed is to send an email that's going to get the attention of the host and get them on the show. And so this almost exact word for word people could use. They obviously change it for the particulars of the person they're sending it to, but I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, go ahead and post it. The thing that I would recommend for your listeners, though, is don't use it word for word. Take the feeling of what I'm talking about. Maybe use the subject line. But the sentence and most of this email was different for your podcast than it is for all the other podcasts.
I see.
I spend up to 5 minutes.
Oh, I
on
see.
email
You're out
crafting all the
talking
words.
to other podcast hosts as well. I see how you are.
Actually, I'm doing 10 podcast interviews a month. That's what
That's awesome.
That's what I have my marketing team doing right now.
Fantastic. It's just great. Well, I can see that you and I could talk. So let's move forward though, on to some additional stuff. You guys, what you're really doing is generating leads. Obviously, that's what you do. And I heard from another interview that you had done that you had started out offering this type of thing as sort of like software as a service, but it turned out that really what the clients wanted was the dang leads. Get us the leads. And so that's a process, and it starts with prospecting. How do you go about deciding who you're going to target for a given client?
Sure. So a lot of the bigger startups, especially if they've been doing sales for a while, they'll have an ideal client profile. Maybe they've hired a sales consultant to write this thing out. But a lot of solopreneurs and lifestyle businesses, like if you have less than 10 employees or something like that, it's not as thought through. So we try to think about a few things. So the first thing is, what have your past clients look like, and can we clone that? So let's say you've worked mostly with agencies in the past, like digital agencies that have between 25 and 75 employees. So that's the first thing that we want to write on the top of our ideal client profile that we're coming up with. Mm-hmm. So the first step is think about the past clients. And then what we try to find based on that is buying signals, other factors that we can find that are publicly available online. That we can then use to further qualify before we ever email them, because we don't want to blast out, an email to 1,000 agencies that aren't, qualified. Wouldn't make any sense. So buying signals, for instance, could be if you're selling design work, right? Maybe they're posting on a job board and they're looking for user experience designers. That means they have a need for it. Or if you're selling like chief security officer outsourcing or technology outsourcing, you can look around for keywords. Maybe they've posted a tweet or a blog post like complaining about how they've been hacked recently. So you want to find those buying signals, and most companies are pretty open about posting things online like that.
Wow. That's great. I love that you're not just looking for, even you're already, narrowing it down to a specific avatar, but then you're looking for somebody who has the highest propensity to buy based upon what they've been talking about recently.
Exactly. The way that I see it, and I might have stolen this from Aaron Ross, the author of Predictable Revenue, the more high quality the lead are, the more qualified, the less you have to actually do when it comes to the email. So for instance, if someone really wants like SEO, if they're just dying to hire somebody to do SEO, and you message them with a 1-sentence email with no subject that says, "Hey, I do SEO, I'd love to help you," they'll probably get back to you because they're in dire need of somebody.
That's awesome. And I wouldn't worry at all about stealing that. I believe it was Picasso that said, "Good artists copy, but great artists steal."
Yeah, I just try to, whenever I can remember that I'm stealing, I try to give credit back.
Yeah, I do too. I do the exact same thing. Always cite the source.
Yeah.
Okay, so what kinds of companies is your solution best suited for?
So anyone in the business to business space, it's perfect for. 70% of our clients right now are software as a service businesses. So uh, anything that is like a WordPress plugin agency, or maybe you sell some kind of pricing solution to Amazon affiliates, any sort of software as a service, like standard startup style
Okay.
company. And then the other 30% are digital agencies, or not digital agencies, any sort of agencies. So like social media companies, PR companies, mobile app development firms, that sort of thing.
And who are they targeting that you guys go after and prospect? Let's
So
say a social agency or somebody like that.
yeah, well, so you were asking about success stories in the pre-interview. I can go into the success stories.
Yeah, that's
That is
great.
actually
If that kills two birds with one stone, that's
yeah.
great.
So one of my favorite clients, his name's Sherman Lee, and he runs this company called Good Audience. And he's a former Yahoo engineer who launched his social media company, and he's been using us to book leads for him. And basically, he's been our client for around 6 months. But the people that he's targeting are startups. So funded startups that have maybe 15, 20 employees and a social media presence that's growing. So we're able to go and we're able to see which company Twitter accounts have increased followers by like 30% in the last 30 days or something, which means that they're starting to ramp up social media, which means that whoever's running it, the marketing manager, whoever, would have a need for Good Audience because he outsources all of it.
Wow. That's awesome. You guys are really smart. I love that. Well, depending on what industry you're targeting, and you just described the types of industries you target, but there are a lot of companies out there that are sort of lead gen companies, like in the home improvement and construction industry, companies like Home Advisor and Angie's List. And then there are others that you more directly compete with, like you had mentioned in your original email, Lead Genius. What differentiates InspireBeats from other companies that generate leads?
So the quality of leads I'd say it's higher because we have the proprietary tools, and then we also do that prospecting that I just talked about, which is finding the buying signals. Mm-hmm. Also, as far as I know, no other company does custom emails right now. Everybody has some sort of email templating, or taking emails and like running them through like a bunch of different user groups and basically automating things. And me and the rest of the team out here, we hate roboting people to death. Like we love customizing emails, and it's so much more effective. So that's the main way we're different.
So, and do you send these then literally one at a time?
So we use a proprietary mail merging software. So what'll happen is we'll write, a few custom sentences, and then come up with like a master template. So let's say 40% of the email is a template, and then 60% of the email are these custom sentences. So like how we found you, and like a compliment.
So you put those into the database associated with that contact.
Yeah, and that way we can send a bunch at once. And it's a lot more efficient to do it that way than trying to send everything one to one.
Yeah, I was wondering how you could get 150 out a day. That's just a lot of concentrated creative work, which would be enough to burn somebody out pretty quickly. But,
yeah, David's got the process down. He's our biz dev lead. He sends emails 150 a day, but it takes him about 2 minutes per email. He's got it down that quickly. I've tried to do it too. When I send cold emails, I'm about 2 minutes 30 seconds, and then Wilson, who's our founder, he's also about 2-3 minutes. So David's like crushing us all right now.
That's still 5 hours a day of doing this.
Right, but he's biz dev. Like, what else is he gonna do?
Yeah, what else has he got to do? That's great. So you're telling me Dave then is the one. David sent me this email.
No, I sent you this email. So I run the marketing team. So I do all the marketing stuff. So outreach for podcasts, speaking events, guest blogging. I respond to Harrows, and then also testing new products. So I do cold emailing when we're launching new products, like that Ruby on Rails list I was just talking about.
Where are you guys located?
So we're over in South San Francisco, near San Mateo.
Okay. And how much does this cost? I mean, and before you tell me a number, what have you, people who don't understand that customers cost money, they need to get that figured out. I worked. The subject of the first book I wrote was experience I had working as a salesman for a home improvement company, and that company had this whole flow down to a science, very much like you guys do. They used other media. They used television and radio and newspaper advertising, that kind of thing. But they would spend over $500 a lead because the value of the lifetime value of the client coming in was also quite high. So people need to understand that leads, the cost of a lead can range anywhere from, $1 to $1 million. It doesn't really matter how much a lead costs. It's only relevant to what the value of that lead is. So with that having been said, how do you guys charge and how much do you charge for generating leads for people?
Sure. So there's actually a really great post by Neil Patel, who does a lot of digital marketing.
Mm-hmm.
He ran through. Yes.
I was going to say I've heard him interviewed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he runs through. He has this really detailed post when he was testing things on how much things cost, and yeah, his LinkedIn leads were about $5,000 per lead, and his lowest one was like $30 a lead from Facebook or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then there's also data from Adobe that says that outbound email gets a 39 times return on investment. So every $1 you spend on outbound email, you'll get $39 back, which is almost double the other channels. So, higher than Facebook, higher than direct marketing, all of that stuff. So our packages, to answer your original question. So we have two outreach packages. One is Scale, and it's us reaching out to 200 people per month. That one is $6.99. And then we have a bigger package for $17.99 where we reach out to 700 people per month. And then they go up, we've got custom packages and everything from there.
So when you say you reach out to, let's use a number of 1,000 people, then based on the response rate that you get, you would get, what was it then, 60 responses and 30 appointments, or how would that work?
Yeah, so I don't even like to count responses, right? Because they're not really worth anything. I only really
Good
count
for
appointments.
You.
So 1,000 times 2%, yeah, that would be about 20 to 30 appointments per month. And that's right in line with what we're getting for Sherman over at Good Audience also.
Awesome. That's great stuff. I can think of a lot of different companies for whom your service is an excellent fit. And speaking of scale, are you guys in a position to be able to scale yourselves as you're able to lay on new clients?
Oh, yeah. So our team is growing. We're 9 employees right now. We're expecting to be about 15 by the beginning of next year. I'm getting 2 other people on my marketing team underneath me now. I already have 2. So I'm going to have 4. And then our biz dev team is growing. So yeah, we're expanding pretty quickly.
That's great. This is all really interesting stuff and very exciting. In one of our email exchanges, you mentioned that conferences are often an overlooked lead generation opportunity. What were you talking about there?
So when you go to a conference, right, the way that most people approach it, especially people that are I've seen this a lot with agencies. They'll go to conferences where people are very similar to them. So for instance, Conversion XL is this conversion like internet marketing conference. And if you go there, you'll see that everybody there, most of the people there, 60, 70, 80% of the people there are internet marketing consultants. And what happens is you end up with a bunch of people that sell internet marketing trying to sell each other at a conference, which is a huge waste of time.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, and it was the same. I was just at SalesStack in San Francisco, which is a bunch of salespeople, and it was just a bunch of lead generation companies trying to sell each other. So that was a waste of my time. However, I was just in a month before that. I was in Seattle for Seattle Interactive, which was an advertising and social media conference. So for my type of business, for lead generation and sales, what that meant was every one of the people that had booths there that were trying to get into advertising. Were people that would need our lead gen. So what me and Wilson did was we went booth to booth and talked to all the salespeople. They were forced to talk to us, right? And we were able to give our pitch for our service. And out of the 15 people there, 7 or 8 turned into qualified leads for us.
I have tried, that's not the exact same approach because obviously you guys are really masters at using the right words to get somebody's attention and engagement. But I've run into a problem in the past where people who are paying for a booth at a trade show don't appreciate getting pitched by somebody who just got a ticket to be a member of the audience. How do you get around that? And they're also supposed to be there gathering in new clients and doing their job rather than getting pitched by somebody else. How do you guys get around that?
So if your service can help them, right, they're gonna like what you do. Ask some qualifying questions up front. So for instance, at Seattle Interactive, I walked up to some random like mobile app development firm and I was asking them, and it turned out I was talking to the head of product. So I was asking about their sales processes and stuff, and he actually turned and he's like, "Oh, my head of biz dev is right here," and he just called her over, and I was talking to her, and then it was qualified at that point.
I see. Sure, right. He introduced you. That was nice.
Yeah. So that's what I would recommend. If you're worried that people might get annoyed, that just sounds like fear, and if fear is holding you back, it's not, the best mindset to get into.
Sure.
So try it and see what happens. If your service is good and if it fits their needs, they won't mind talking to you. And in fact, they might even turn away potential customers to keep the conversation going.
And in your case, obviously, what you're talking to them about is getting more customers, which is their objective in being at the trade show in the first place.
Right. But any business, makes clients more money at some point. So like even an accounting firm, makes them more money by saving them time or things like that. So if your business has, a benefit, they'll love to talk to you.
That's great. Well, I can't believe we've blown through the time that I'd allotted for this already, but I kind of had a feeling when I knew what we were going to talk about, and it all started with that great email that you sent me. If somebody listening is excited about what you guys do and would like to learn more about how you could implement your processes to help them, what's the best way for them to get in touch with Inspire Beats, Alex?
Sure. So just go over to inspirebeats.com, and you can either pick one of the packages directly from the site, or there's a question form. Somebody will get in touch with you, ask about your needs, and that should be it. We try to keep it as painless as possible, the starting of the process.
That's a great idea. Another way to make it easy for people to engage with you. Well, Alex Berman, I really appreciate you spending this time with us today on Radio Free Enterprise.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks again to Alex Berman, and thank you for listening.
All Frankie, all the time. Radio Free Enterprise.